what? I am really excited to be here. For 29 years, I traveled and did speaking engagements all over the country. And I was sharing with Blake's not here today, but I was sharing with Blake the fact that the last place, a city I visited with over 150,000 people was in Des Moines, Iowa, which he was born and raised right close to there. So I have had the opportunity through the years to be in every city in this country with 150,000 people or more for speaking engagements. And it's, hey, when you get to be my age, you've had an opportunity to learn a lot of things, right? One of the things I did, I was a professional baseball player. That's where I started. I started out of high school, signed with the St. Louis Cardinals, and then over the course of 9 seasons, had a professional baseball career. And the one thing that I did by signing out of high school, I promised my mother that I would get a college education. So I went to Troy, and at the age of 28, I graduated. So I fulfilled that obligation. But I want to share in the beginning a story with you, a baseball story. And it occurred in Atlanta. We were playing in Atlanta in the old stadium. And it was my night to pitch. I was a pitcher, left-hander at that. So in the first inning, I didn't get anyone out. I gave up a couple, 3 runs, and in baseball terms, when you get taken out of the game during the course of the inning, when the manager comes, takes you out of the game, it's called getting knocked out of the box. So in 1995, I wrote a book on baseball, Answers to Baseball's Most Asked Questions, and that was one of the questions that was in there. So I got knocked out of the box. Well, I go down to the dressing room, and to get to the dressing room, you have to go down past first base and go under the stands to the dressing room. So here I am with an early shower. I get to the dress, I come back down the runway, and I'm gonna check the scoreboard and see, well, maybe we've scored some runs ourselves. Well, the only thing above ground is my head. I'm in this tunnel. And just as I get to the end of the tunnel, I hear the crack of the bat. Now, Shane, do you know what it means when you hear the crack of the bat? That means the ball meets the bat. And I look, and there's a line drive foul ball coming straight for me. And I can't get out of the way. It's hit me squarely between the eyes. And it left a seam right here because a big old knot popped up. So down I go. The ball boy, no one knows I'm there till the ball boy comes to retrieve the ball. And there I am laid out. They call the ambulance, and they carry me over to Grady Hospital. Now, if you ever go to Atlanta, right here, 20, 75, 85, all of them come together. There's a hospital there called Grady Hospital. They found out there, ladies and gentlemen, what my mother already knew. I have a hard head. So, the next morning, the Atlanta Constitution sports page, headlines, Vickery knocked out twice. Now, the best part was a subheading. X-rays of head show nothing. So all these years, I've used that as an excuse. It works well. You know, what's been the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you? You don't have to recant it, but well, some of us don't want to hear about it, you know what I mean? But my family and I had an opportunity to be my mother and 3 sisters. I have a brother and 4 sisters. And by the way, my mother is 99 years of age. That's something. And she has been a blessing. Well, we had an opportunity to be on Family Feud. And so this was 40 years ago. Well, we go to California. The first place is the opportunity to be a part of that, going through the interview process, was fun enough itself. I never had heard of this show, didn't know anything about it. But I know I showed up in a three-piece suit on, and everyone else was there in raggedy, whatever they can. And my sister said, "Oh, Lou, you're gonna mess it all up for us. You with a three-piece suit on." Well, I had this old rain hat, I like a lid, and I had it in the car, so I go get this ugly old rain hat, and I put it on. So here I am with a three-piece suit, ugly old rain hat, and I put a pair of boots on. So, I looked a little, I look like I act, okay? I'm a little bit on the other side. So we go in and get the interview, we go to California. And then, they ask you these, what I call cornball questions. What do you lose in a car? Well, I put a ballpoint pen. Boop. So I missed that one. Well, I had missed everything till we got down to one that really counted. What do you feed the animals at the zoo? What do you feed the animals at the zoo? What would you say? Peanuts. What else? Think about it. Well, it's not always easy, right?
They sell you stuff to feed.
Huh?
Now they sell you stuff to feed them.
Yeah, well, they tell you not to feed them, right? Well, that was a question. What do you feed the animals at the zoo? That's probably what I should have said. You don't feed them, right? Well, at any rate, we got the 4 answers were all correct. They got to me. And Todd, Lou's thinking, well, what can they do? And my answer was, you feed them animal crackers. So we're out. After the show, the producer comes in and he says to me, he says, we have had some bad ones here, but you may have been the worst. So that probably was my most embarrassing moment. I want to take a little time and share something with the most important person in this room. Who's the most important person here?
Me.
Well, there are a lot of important people. You're all important. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Jason talks about ordinary, turning ordinary to extraordinary. What does it take to be extraordinary? Coach, any of you know the name Coach Sonny Smith? Do you know that name? Coach Smith was a basketball coach and a good one. He's in the Hall of Fame. He coached Charles Barkley when he was at Auburn. Well, Coach Smith and I wrote a book called Winning the Head Game. Now, we wrote this for athletes, but we could actually write it for anybody. Because when it comes down to it, the difference between being good and being great happens from here up. There are kids in high school here, just about anywhere, that have the athletic skills of most pro players. But where the difference is what happens from here up. And I want to share some things about that with you in our first session together. And as I do that, I want to basically talk about the fact that every one of us in this room is unique. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
You're unique. I'm unique. We're all unique just like everyone else, right? But there is something special about us. There's a special uniqueness that we have as individuals that I think sometimes, it really is, it's what makes the difference, is the ability to be able to find and to utilize that uniqueness. Now, the challenging part for many of us is this. A lot of us on the journey don't feel like we're worthy of the trip. And it happens. What makes us unworthy? Because of past conditionings, negative influences, negative experiences, we have a tendency to let our dreams and our desires, aspirations, and goals to diminish. I've been there. I know what that's like. But like, as I said, like everyone else, there is a uniqueness that we have that makes us special. And that's, as I said, what I'd like to discuss with you today. My objective is to help individuals hopefully find and get on the route, not just to be good, but what does it take to be great? You know what? A guy named Hank Aaron hit a lot of home runs. How about this here, Judd? Any of you follow baseball? Hit 61 home runs. I was with the Yankees in the early 60s when Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle and those guys were still there. Aaron Judge has hit 61 home runs. Do you know what the difference is between a home run and a fly ball on the bat? About that much. Just about a quarter of an inch difference is the difference between the ball going over the fence and just being a long fly ball. No. And so, as we seek our uniqueness together, I think the biggest thing that we have to understand is we have to have a mindset that's positive, upbeat, and outgoing to be effective in what you do on a daily basis. I promise you that's true. Now, on the board, you see some words. And we're going, can you see that from above? You probably cannot see that from your angle.
I can't see what's in my book, so you're fine. Keep going.
Okay, good. Well, what I want to share with you, there's 11 points. I'm not much on doing 10. I have to do either 7 or 11. Isn't that lucky numbers? So we're going to talk about 11 things here and share them together this morning. And as we move to talking about what's to come in the future, the first thing up there says conversation. What's the most important conversation that you have with yourself? Do you realize that 50,000 plus thoughts transform through our mind every day? 50,000 plus. And many of those, what? Are talking to ourselves. Isn't that right? So the most important conversation we have is the one we have with ourselves. Now, let me see. By past conditioning, many times, what do? We tend to tie ourselves in what I call knots. N-O-T-S. I cannot, do not, won't not. You can add the apostrophe in there, I think it's important we do two things. We don't tie ourselves in knots, and we be careful of apostrophe T's. What does apostrophe T do? I can't, I won't, I shouldn't. Isn't that right? Why does that hold us back? Why does it hold us back? Well, I'm going to share something with you. Since that conversation is going to go on, and we're going to talk to ourselves in a, if you will, a negative way, and it happens. As you look around you, you see other people that are, as they carry on that conversation with themselves, the one thing that I have found out through the years is that the difference between those that do okay and those do they're really good, a significant part of that, it translates into the conversation we have with ourselves. Now I want to give you I want to ask you to participate with me with something, okay? And I'd like for you to finish, if you will, the sentence. Stephanie, do you have the sheet that you use this with it? Okay, I want to. My first question is, finish this. I can't do that. I can't do that. I want you to translate it now from a negative to a positive. How would you ask that? I can do it. Think in terms of what is it that you have told yourself that you can't do? I cannot do that. Is there anything related to your job? Think about it. If you're going to carry on the conversation yourself, what would you change? What would you make an adjustment in? You're thinking, I see the wheel spinning. Anybody would like to take a shot at it? How would you change that?
The apostrophe on the end.
Pardon me?
Can't or can't.
Speak loud enough so everybody can hear you.
Change can't to can?
Huh?
Should change a can't to can?
It's easy.
Apostrophe.
I can do it. I don't know I can't do it. Until I do what? I don't like the word try.
Do it.
Trying. Pardon me?
Do it.
Yeah, isn't it true? Let me ask you something. If you were a pilot on a plane, and you were in a plane, do you try to fly that plane? You either do or don't you? Same thing in sales. Same thing in marketing. You either make a sale or you don't make a sale. There's no in between. I mean, y'all, well, think about it. We're going to talk about that too. Well, people say, well, you know what? They give you all the excuses in the world. Do you realize there's only five legitimate objections? Only 5. The rest of them are smoke screens, put offs. So we're going to talk about that. But I want to get this in the mind and the thought process. Let me do this. I can't until I change it to I can. I can do it. What makes that change? You don't know until you do it, until you attempt it, right? So we're not going to try. We're going to enter with an attitude that I can do it. All right? Finish this for me. That's too complicated. How would I change that?
It's not too complicated.
It's not too complicated. This is not too complicated. It looks, hey, there's a lady here, and I'm going to introduce her in a little bit. She will tell you that when it comes to technological stuff, she's heard me say that before. That's too complicated. But it's not too complicated, is it? Huh? Until we do what? Until we give it a go. And so we think in terms of what? How do we turn that around? How do we turn it around? Simple. Not too complicated? No, it's not too complicated. Until we make that effort. I'm going to give you a couple others, and then we'll move on. That's not fair. You ever said that? What's not fair?
Life's not fair.
Life's not fair. But the way we make it fair is, what do we do to make it fair? What do we have to do? We have to understand that since it's not always fair, we got to stick our neck in there and go for it, right? To make it fair. I think if I've seen anything in this life, that one of the biggest concerns relates simply to that. That's not fair.
Get over it.
It is fair. Because that's life. And so we look at it in a different way. Now here's the biggest issue. And I want to read something tonight. Dana and I have a new book coming out next month. It's entitled People Skills in the Age of Social Media. And one of the things that we talk about in here, obviously, is your self-talk. But I want to share with you a part, because here's what happens, a reason why it's so difficult to switch from what we've done for years into something new. And I want you to grasp this, because it's important. You see, the biggest factor that we have to overcome is what is called the subconscious mind. You see, if we've been feeding all this negative stuff into our brain over the years, and then all of a sudden we're going to make a switch, what's the subconscious going to say? Well, let me read what we've written, okay? Share with you, because I want to get it right. Keep in mind that everything good will not happen at a moment's notice. If what the subconscious mind has been hearing has been basically negative, instant miracles cannot be expected. As a reactive mind, it's a reactive mind. What does that mean, reactive mind? Whatever you feed in there, good out, garbage in, garbage out, right? So it's a reactive mind. As a reactive mind, the subconscious has a real tendency to be a little skeptical when conscious mind proposes a change in the way we think and act. The subconscious mind, here's what it says. The subconscious mind will say, now hold on just a minute here. You've been feeding me all this stuff, all these years, telling me that you can't do this, or you cannot do that, life's not fair, and all of a sudden now you're going to make this change? You're going to make this adjustment? I ain't buying it. That's your subconscious. Why? Because you got to keep doing it continuously. Ladies and gentlemen, for 3 weeks. You have to work at it every day for 3 weeks to make one adjustment. Have you ever heard the term monotask? I have a friend that tells me, Vickery, I want you to know I am great. I am great at multitasking. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. But what is monotask? What would you say the term monotask? What would that mean?
Just do one thing at a time.
One thing at once. So if there's 4 things that you'd like to make adjustments in, which one would you tackle? Monotask. One thing at once. Does that make sense? So to get that term in your mind, I'm going to monotask. I'm going to do what I need to do to exercise and make a change in this particular thing. So the subconscious plays a big role in the conversation we have with ourselves. What's number 2 on our list? Purpose and passion. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not find our passion. Our purpose. We uncover it. Now I want you to understand that. We don't find it, we uncover it. It's already there. It's part of us. So our real challenge is, what will it take for me to uncover my real purpose? Your purpose is always with you. You wouldn't be sitting in this room if you didn't have a purpose. Did you realize that? Because you got something in you that it makes this particular occupation important to you. That's your purpose. But if you don't have the passion to carry that purpose through, what happens? Look at the word passion. Right? Would you write the word passion down? And I want you to write it down this way. Listen to me. P-A-S-S dash I dash O-N. Candace, what does that say?
Pass I on.
Pass I on. Do you have the kind of passion that you can pass on? Then other people that would move other people to action? You see, until we really, really grasp that, we kind of flounder. And I've experienced that many, many times in my life. See, I struggled after my athletic career was over. What do I do next? What happens next? You know, the thing about my athletic career, one day everything is okay. Next day, guess what? Injury, career virtually over. So the passion. What is your passion? You've got your purpose, and then you have your what? Your passion. Pass thy on. Or is your passion the kind that needs and can be passed on? Think about it. All right, our third term is change. You know what? Most of us don't change because we see the light. We change because we feel the heat. Would you agree with that? That's kind of true, isn't it, huh? What is change? What is it?
Do things we-
What constitutes a change? Is there something that you came here that you want to upgrade and improve and redirect? Well, let me tell you, the one thing we know about insanity, what's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing.
Do the same thing, well, over and over and expecting different results. So we realize that if we want to make an adjustment in something that we're doing, what do we have to do? We've got to change the thought process. Now I'm going to give you 3 words, and I want you to please make a note of them. The first word is that there needs to be an awakening. You got to really realize, oh, you know what? If I'm going to do better, if I'm going to stretch out for extraordinary, here's what I got to do. I got to do what? I got to make this change. There's the awakening process, an acknowledgement, if you will. This is what I call my AAA approach to change. So the second part is that if you have this awareness, there has to be an awareness of what you can do next, right? You got to think in terms of what will help me move now that I've recognized and I appreciate I need to make that adjustment. What will move me to the next level? You have to have an awareness of it. Now, in our book, we talk about at least 10 different awareness. It's not just a mental awareness. There's an emotional awareness. There's a physical awareness. You can go right on down the list. If you're going to make a change, there has to be, first, the acknowledgement or awakening. Second, there has to be awareness. And then the third A is that there has to be action. You got to do it. What did I say earlier about 3 weeks? 3 weeks?
For a habit.
Right down at the Galleria here. I spent 10 years in the office. My office was in the Galleria. I traveled down to Birmingham. I got tired of Atlanta, all that traffic. So, you know, if I was going to travel, I might as well be somewhere where I enjoy it. So I came over here. And my office is there in the Galleria. And after 5 years, me wadding up papers, throw them in a garbage can, right? I wad them up, toss them over in the garbage can. They gave me a different office, one a little bigger. But guess what? The door, instead of in to the left, was now to the right. But what did Lou do? Right out the door. And the girls were complaining, the ladies in the office were complaining, Lou, you're just making a mess. Well, then I said, okay, I've been preaching about 3 weeks, let's see what I can do for myself, right? So I mentally, each day, then I started thinking about it. Toss it in the opposite direction. But every now and then I do what? Over here. That's the way it is in real life, isn't it? Huh? We make these adjustments and we get to this action, but we do what? We backslide a little bit. We backslide. And I got one of my favorite terms, we'll get to it in just a minute, relates to that. Change. It's not easy. Redirection. Redirection only counts when it is in the right direction. Doesn't make any difference. If we do what we're doing and making adjustments, if it's not right for us, not what someone else might say, but it has to be right for whom? For me. And you make that change in your life, but you've got to stay with it at least 3 weeks, and then I promise you, it will start to make an adjustment. You'll start making that change. But what happens? You know when you walk out of a meeting like this, that's probably as high as it's going to be for that day. You're gonna get, oh man, I had all this notes, made all this notes. But what difference does it make unless we go back and look at some of the things that we talked about and said, you know what an aha is? What's an aha? Aha, that's for me, right? Okay? So basically, that's something that we need to be consciously aware of. I have, and I'm proud of this, I have a quote that's included in the top 100 quotes for the 21st century. It's called "Do all that's expected of you, and then a little bit more." And Coach Saban at Alabama has this on the desk of every one of his coaches, and I'm glad he gave me credit for it, because and then he wrote a caption under it what his expectations were of his coaches. But do all what? All expected of you, and then what? Just a little bit more. Stretch out just a little bit. All right, this is what the expectations, these are what the company wants me to do, but what do you want to do? That's the difference in that, right? So stretch out. Do all that's expected of you, and then a little bit more. It doesn't have to be great, big time, little at a time. That's where we get better. Would you buy that? Absolutely. Number 5, it says the word cause. Be careful what you cause, because you will be the cause of mostly what happens to you. Agree? Absolutely. Be careful what you cause, because you will be the cause of mostly what happens to you. Not somebody else, but who? You and me. Choices and consequences. For every major choice, there's always a major consequence. Right? Boy, if anybody can look in a mirror, it's me with that baby. Because this is on my website, this particular one. At what? To remind whom? Me. You gotta be careful what you cause. Gotta be careful of your choices, because there's gonna be a consequence. Make sense? Number 6, pressure. You know, is there pressure in your job? Would you believe it if I told you that I don't believe there's anything called pressure? Should be. Now let me cite. Pressure is a privilege. Pressure is an opportunity. Do you see, if we didn't have what we call pressure situations, we could pack it up and go home. Isn't that right? And in any business where you're dealing with people, you're going to face what people term as pressure. But here is what I want to share with you. If you focus on execution, what you're supposed to do every time with every situation, there's no such thing as pressure, a pressure situation. There are situations where we succumb to pressure, but the situation itself, there's no such thing as it. Now, go back to this game. Is the last game of the season, the Braves and the Mets are battling for the pennant, is the last game of the season any more important than the first game? Absolutely not. No. So, understand that if you're doing everything you possibly can, everything that you possibly can to make it work, you execute what you're doing. Now, I want you to write this term down, because I think it's important. Focus on execution and not on the results. Someone want to tell me what you understood that I just said?
Focus on what you can control.
That's it. What can you control? You focus on that. And then, because if you're focusing on the end result, man, I gotta make this sale, you know, what, I need that commission, I gotta make this. What is happening to us? Do you believe in body language?
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna talk a little bit about that before we close today. See, I'm a big proponent of body language. It tells a bigger story than anything else we do. And we talk about it in the book, how important it is to understand. That's the reason it bothers me a little bit with social media because guess what is missing? The body language part. That's the reason why people that, if you do a lot of business with social media, but then when you get face to face to kind of close the deal, maybe you don't close it, you need to do that, get face to face, we're not as effective because our body language did not back up the statements and the things that we believe. Now, that's a personal assessment, okay? All right? So pressure, just tell yourself, no such thing. There's not. There's situations that we succumb to pressure. I'll say it again. But there's no such thing as a pressure situation. They're all equal value. Agreed? All right. Number 7, here it is. Let me tell you a story. How many of you understand the term closer in baseball? God, I see some hands. I was a closer, okay? That was my role as a pitcher, as a closer. What that means is we'd have a lead, and I'd come in, and my job is to close it, and hopefully we secure a win. Well, I come into the game, we lead 6-3, and the bases are loaded. There are 2 outs. I make 1 pitch, and the guy hits a grand slam home run. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that means 4 runs scored, and now the score is what? 7-6 in favor of the opponent. 1 pitch. And so at 2 o'clock that morning, I'm out walking the streets. And in those days, it wasn't too bad to walk the streets late at night, but there was a police officer out there checking doors, seeing if businesses were locked up. And he looked at me and he said, "Son, what are you doing out here at 2 o'clock in the morning?" And I expressed to him, well, officer, I told him the story. And he looked at me and he said this. He says, "Young fella, in your business and in my business, you better have a good forgettery." Do you have a good forgettery? Let me tell you, it's one of your memory is important, but your forgettery is just as important, particularly when you deal with the public. You do everything you possibly can. You do it all by the book. It all was right, and then you still get what? No. No, I'm really not. No, that's not for me. And then they go somewhere else. They do business. And then how do you feel? So I can share with you. One of the greatest tools we have is a good forgettery. We have to put it aside and then move on. And that's particularly, see, ladies and gentlemen, a mistake does not define us, but the next attempt does. But the mistake doesn't define us. But if we don't make that next attempt with the same vigor and excitement and professionalism as before, what happens? What happens? Agree? Okay? So, hey, I got guys at the tennis court that I play with tennis. By the way, I have to share this with you. You know, I'm in called the winter period of life, but I still play tennis 4 or 5 days a week. And I'm number 47th ranked for my age group in the country. So I tell you that, it's not easy, but you know what? I'm gonna have a few aches and pains, but I'm gonna be out there slugging that little old fuzzy ball the best I know how. And I'm headed from here, going to Huntsville to do a presentation like this, a book signing, and to play in a tennis tournament. So I probably built that trip around what? Tennis, right? But at any rate, the important thing to understand is that, you see the word nothing? You know what every one of us in this room needs to learn to do? Nothing. We need to learn the art of doing nothing. I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do what? Nothing. It's the toughest thing in the world for me to do. Nothing. But there comes a time, because you see, if we do not unwind, we're not going to have enough left when it's time what? To wind up again. So you need to pull back and do what? Unwind. You agree? And that's so. I just think that it's one of the toughest things to learn to do. It's just like, I'm not, you know what? I'm just going to sit. I love to listen to easy music. You know, I listen to it all day, particularly when I'm writing. But that's my way of just kind of learning how to unwind a little bit. Folks, I go wide open all the time. You do too. 3 R's. What are the 3 R's? Rest, relaxation, recreation. How? Rest, relaxation, recreation. I had COVID real bad last year. In fact, they called my family. Looked like I was going to make it. That was in May of 2021. And we won't get into all the details, but I had double pneumonia. I was on the wing at Fairhope Thomas Hospital with there were 5 of us there, the other 4 passed away. But today, after 22 days, 33 lost pounds, I was sent home. And I remember what the doctor told me. Doctor told me when he checked me out. He looked at me, and I had a pair of shorts on. He said, Mr. Vickery, those tan legs saved your life. What do you think he meant? Playing all that tennis, tan legs. That vitamin D, vitamin C, whatever we gather, right? So what's my point? What do we do? Find something that you can release it from a recreation standpoint and walk. I'm not big on jogging. By the way, I told people that I was on a podcast not long ago, and they asked me, what were the 3 things I enjoyed doing the most? And I said, well, I enjoy walking, I enjoy tennis, and I enjoy eating. And that's true. Beautiful meal last night. That's just unbelievable. And so the guy said, well, no women? No. I said, let me tell you something. I've done something very good in my life. Some things very good, but one of them is that I was asked, what 2 things were that I would do to stay, from a recreational standpoint. When I left professional baseball, I said, look, I am not going to run. I will walk, but I am finished running because I ran enough. But he says, okay, you walk. And he says, why did you make that sense? Well, I found out that there were 2 things afterwards I was going to do. I was going to chase a tennis ball, and I was going to chase a woman. And guess what? I did better. I've done a hell of a lot better chasing what? Tennis balls. So, for whatever's worth the partner, right? Nothing. Do nothing. Hang out. Who do you hang out with? Do you hang out with success? With the people around you? Are they successful? If they don't increase us, what happens to us? They end up decreasing us, isn't that right? So is it very important for us to hang out with people that can make us better? Absolutely. You know, I've always tried to make it part of my game plan to hang out with people that can improve what I do. I want to do that. First place is they're going to be upbeat and uplifted. I spoke Monday night and I was introduced, and the one thing that they told that the person introduced me says, I've known Lou for 35 years. And the one thing I can say for him, I've never seen him not be upbeat. Now folks, I have my down periods. But I learned to practice that for Vickery, and let's move on. Move on. And I think it's important for us to appreciate the fact of who we hang out has a bearing on what happens to us in life. What do you scatter? What do you scatter? Do you scatter goodwill? Do you scatter giving, having a given heart? You see, life to me is always better when we focus on scattering instead of gathering. Make sense? Scatter, put it out there. Do it with love. Do it with compassion. Do it because you really want to. Do you understand when we give, expecting something in return, that's not giving. That's bartering. Isn't that right? So we think in terms of giving of our best, and if we receive something in return, which is the most likely to happen, we're thankful. You know, I use the expression, attitude of gratitude. You gotta have an attitude of gratitude to be successful in this life. Did you know that, Dan, a lot of folks don't realize that when we really believe that we are thankful, we're grateful, we appreciate the people that we associate with, you know what happens? Let me tell you what happens. We're healthier. We're not surrounded and we're not thinking about the negative part. In this book, I got is this a little poem? I just had to put it in there. About a smile. You know, just think how far you can go with a smile on your face, isn't that right? Huh? Don't look like a jackass eating briars. You gotta think in terms of that hey, it's what I call a cheerful face. It's a vital part. Is approachability big? We're going to talk about it, and we're going to take a quick little, I got something I want to do here, but we're going to talk about it next. Approachability. Have you ever heard the term? Are you an approachable person? What makes you an approachable person? Well, let me tell you, the first thing that somebody sees when they meet you is what? The way you dress and the look on your face. Isn't that right? And if you're walking up there looking like that jackass eating briars, I can promise you, you're off to a bad start. You got 52 seconds to make a great first impression. 52. I don't know why 52. Sound good anyway, right? Huh? But that's true. Scatter. 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 Not gather. And the last point I want to make in this segment is a little better. What do I mean by a little better? Do everything you possibly can to leave things just a little better. If you take that attitude, regardless of where you go, when you're with someone, you want to do what? You want to make their life. No one comes to you and with an idea, hey, I want less in life. Isn't that right? They're looking for more. They're looking for something better. Do I sound like I'm preaching? I apologize. But that's true. Good. what we're gonna do. We're gonna think in terms, what can I do to make this individual's life better?